Hey, what's going on? This is Thomas Galdenzi with Combat Sports Coverage. And on this edition, I'll be interviewing movie star, actor, and five-time MMA champion Mike Big Bang Olowski, who is a former Red Power Ranger, and he was on the movies Three Ninjas. And he is currently a five-time MMA champion, and he has a great YouTube show called Blade of the Nerds, where he teaches you how to use many different weapons. What was more nerve-wracking, filming the hit TV show Power Rangers or filming the blockbuster hit Three Ninjas or stepping into the cage?
It really just depends on what you consider nerve-wracking, I guess. They're nerve-wracking in their own ways, right? I mean, both of those television shows were already hits by the time I jumped in, so there was quite a large legacy shoes to fill. Whereas MMA, you have not only your own legacy that you're thinking about, but you also have to think about, not dying. So it really just depends. I would say that they're both equally as nerve-wracking in two completely different ways.
That's awesome. Yeah, I could definitely see being an actor and a movie star would definitely be really nerve-wracking. More probably nerve-wracking than people think. But definitely stepping in the cage would be probably pretty scary, going in there about to fight another trained athlete, who's ready to do damage to you. And then first I want to talk to you about playing young Rocky, the Red Ranger. How was your experience as a kid actor on a hit TV series?
By the time I actually got on Power Rangers, that engine was full steam ahead. And it was literally the biggest thing to happen to kids' television programming in, decades. And being a child on the child show that the show was directed to was it's mind-blowing, to say the least, right? You're awestruck, especially being my first real big project that I had done as an actor at that point. There was no getting used to it. It was kind of throw you into the deep end, and congratulations, kid, you're in Hollywood now.
Exactly. And how did that come about? How did you get the role as a Power Ranger?
Especially in the early 90s, when you're kicking ass and taking names on like the competition circuit the way I was as a child, action movies being what it was, the next logical step that people started saying to do is, hey, you need to get into movies. So as a kid, I was a Japanese Jiu-Jitsu throwing champion, world champion, as well as a karate forms champion. So being on that level, taking the W's that I was at that time, that was sort of the only other step after that. So I'd been approached by a manager and then an agent, and then they started booking me auditions and stuff. Started auditioning for national and local commercials. But generally it was my martial arts that would catch me the gigs. If you look at, pretty much my entire career, anything of notability that you recognize me from was definitely because of my martial arts experience.
And how close are you? Still pretty close with all the other former Rangers on the show?
We are, it's not like we're enemies by any means, but like with anything, you grow up, you grow apart, you have your own families, you have your own jobs. They're kind of spread out across the world. Some of them live in Europe now. Some of them are principals of schools. And obviously I own my own kids martial arts program here in the state of Utah, as well as in Burbank, California. So we're all busy. It's not like we don't like each other, but we don't have the time to unfortunately get together for Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah. And what was your favorite episode that you were on as a Power Ranger?
One of my favorite episodes, my favorite episode that I think I had the fondest memories of were the production company rented out the entire water park of Raging Waters at that time. Growing up in Los Angeles, I was a huge fan of Raging Waters during the summer and stuff like that. So it was quite a unique experience to walk into essentially a water theme park and have it all closed down for the use of just a bunch of kids. But the funny story about that, the reason why they were able to close it down was because it was winter. So going down water slides, even in California in 40 degree weather isn't exactly the child's dream, but it still has fond memories.
Oh, so you did get to go in the park though and kind of go on some of the rides when no one was in?
Absolutely, yeah. I turned on all of the water, had some fun with this. The first time they ever closed down a theme park for me to shoot in. So.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That's really cool. And then what is like the most like favoriteest moment of being a Power Ranger nowadays?
Looking back on being in Power Rangers in general, I think seeing how much that culture and the fandom has grown over the years and how much affinity people have for those original Power Rangers, specifically the first three seasons. Just being part of that original Power Rangers cast and original Power Rangers movement, part of the show that literally everybody in the world, whether or not you're a current fan of Power Rangers or not, recognizes, is probably the most, should I say, bewildering thing. I never knew that that would be such a big thing in my adult life as it is.
That's awesome. And do you like you're still a young guy, you still look young and everything, you're in good shape. Have the Power Rangers like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, any of like those brands like ever came back to you and asked you to maybe come back on a show or do any like special appearances on an episode or anything?
Well, I've never been directly approached by the production companies themselves. The fandom has definitely asked to see like an alternate Rocky come back and do some awesome martial arts and stuff like that on the show. To be honest, I think one of the main problems would be that I am part of the Screen Actors Guild union, and I don't believe that Power Rangers films with the union. So that might be a big problem. That might not be. They might be able to get a deferred status if that's what fans want. If fans want to see it, they have to keep asking for it, I suppose. And I'm sure if enough of them do, the owners Hasbro will make it happen.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see you, at least even if it's just for one episode, come back and be on the show. That would be awesome, I think. And then a few years after playing the Red Ranger, you were casted on the blockbuster hit movie called Three Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain, which also featured wrestling star Hulk Hogan. How was your experience at another young age being on such a big film?
Again, I alluded to this earlier. Power Rangers was only the first time they shut down a theme park for me in order to film a television or movie production. And this was the second time. I think I was like 14. I think I celebrated my 15th birthday on the set of that television show. And it was in a theme park in Denver, Colorado that shut down for me. So it's a kid's dream, right? I think one of the more fond memories that I have of that, I was a huge fan of Bruce Lee. I was a huge fan of Jackie Chan, especially during that time. And they really put a huge emphasis on the fight scenes in that particular movie of Three Ninjas. So they casted, super talented martial artists and made sure that those fight scenes were really awesome. And that's probably the best part of it. Walking in and that was the first time I had worked with huge celebrities, though. And I think that was the change, right? I mean, I worked with Hulk Hogan, who's like you said, he's the guy for wrestling. Jim Varney, the actor who played Ernest P. Worrell and all of those awesome, Ernest Scared Stupid movies and stuff like that, and Lonnie Anderson. And even contemporary guys that, God, I wouldn't have even known that I knew until I became an adult and saw them in other movies.
Were you a little starstruck when you first met them, or no?
I think by that time I had worked with enough large productions that it became more of a professional thing for me. So I wasn't as starstruck, but I have to say, being 15 years old and seeing how big the Hulkster is, traveling around with bringing his wrestling buddies. Like I saw the Big Show. And they were just drinking milk from gallon hand jugs that just looked like cups that I would hold in my hand. I think that was the most awe-inspiring thing. It's like looking at the mountain on Game of Thrones. They were just huge.
Exactly. And what was the biggest difference for you from doing a TV series and then going into a movie?
I would think the biggest difference was internal. It was me. I was 11 on my first big project when I hit Power Rangers. I think by the time I hit Three Ninjas, I was a much more seasoned child actor. I've seen a bunch of stuff, and I was a much more talented and competent martial artist at that point. So I think that was like the biggest difference, personally. As far as the production goes, you're dealing with Haim Saban at the time was kind of known for cutting corners and doing cheaper projects versus Columbia TriStar, which is a Disney-owned company. They had $20 million, $25 million budget for this project. So it was a lot. The edges were a lot smoother, should I say?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you would think there would be a pretty big difference between doing a TV show and a movie. It was always something I kind of wondered. And then,
Yeah.
were you a fan of the original Three Ninja movies?
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, anything martial arts in the '90s, I swallowed whole. Like there was, I mean, I was a martial arts nut. I say was as if I'm still not a martial arts nut, but yeah, anything that was punching or kicking or weapons, I had my foothold on. I had actually auditioned for Three Ninjas earlier in my career when I was a lot younger for the second movie, as I auditioned for Tum Tum, and I didn't book that part then, and then come find out like 5 years after that. Old enough to play Colt now, and I got cast as the edgy middle kid. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I was a huge fan of those movies growing up. I was actually went to my parents' house. I was trying to find our VH of the movie that you were on, the third one, and I couldn't find it. But man, I wanted to pull it out for you. It was one of my favorite movies. I probably watched it like all the time growing up because I was like you. I was really into martial art movies, and I thought they were great. And then, how was like interacting with the Hulk? As you said earlier, he was one of the big guys. And then, how was it like? Was he like a really nice guy?
yeah, the Hulkster, especially by that time, he's been a part of this game for a good time. He knows how to handle his celebrity, and he especially knows how to handle kids. So he was fantastic. He met all expectations. I think I told this story before at a Comic-Con, but he found out that we didn't have rides to the premiere of Three Ninjas, and he came back by in his own limo and picked us up because he found out that we were just our parents were just driving ourselves. He was like, "No, brother, I'll pick you up. It'll be great."
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool.
So we drove all the way to the premiere in the back of the Hulkster's limo. It was quite a unique experience.
Yeah, I bet that was a good time. Something you'll probably remember forever.
Yeah, definitely.
And do you know if they'll ever remake those movies, the Three Ninja movies, or maybe make it into like a little TV series or anything?
Who knows what it comes down to? I mean, all movies as of this point are all just sequels or reboots, anyways. So I think I'm finding out going to Comic Cons now. Recently, in the last year, people have approached me wanting to get more out in the public and meet like the nostalgic fans of those two franchises. So I've been going to Comic Cons lately for the last year and a half, and I'm surprised at how many people recognize Three Ninjas, recognize the mask, are bringing me posters and VHS copies of the tapes to have me sign for them. So who knows? I think it's a good sort of untapped nostalgic thing that people have that's rough for a good reboot. But that's up to Disney, who I think would technically own the rights now unless they sold it off to somebody else.
Yeah, I think they should. I think it would be great. They have the little series going with the Karate Kid. I think the Three Ninjas would be a hit going on. And then
Could be a lot of fun. I did a April Fool's prank where I pretended that I had gotten a script for a fifth Three Ninjas movie, and it went pretty viral.
Oh wow!
So who knows? I mean, it could happen. It could not happen. It's really up to them and whether or not they see the money in it. With a movie like Avengers breaking $1.2 billion in the first weekend, maybe a Three Ninjas reboot might be chump change for them, but who knows? We would all love to see it.
Exactly. And bringing up to actually a good segue to my next question was, what do you get recognized more? Do you get recognized more as a Power Ranger or as a Three Ninja?
Gosh, it really just depends on where I am. There are a lot of Power Ranger specific Comic Cons where it's called it's called Ranger Stop. There's also Power Morphicon. They're traveling across the United States. When I go there, I tend to be obviously recognized as a Power Ranger more. With kids, I'm certainly recognized as a Power Ranger more. But with adults between the ages of 18 or probably about 25 and 40, I'm definitely recognized as Colt more.
That's awesome. And now I want to talk to you about your epic MMA career, where you are a 5-time mixed martial arts champion, with all your wins coming by finish, and currently ranked the #1 fighter in Utah. And I believe it's at 170 pounds?
Lightweight and welterweight.
Oh,
so yeah.
Awesome. So two division champ, basically. Oh, that's awesome. And what made you want to step into the cage?
I think that there's a certain aspect of martial arts that is fundamentally flawed in the sense that we tend to think movements work just because we see them work in demonstration. And I think I've always thought that MMA is a sort of like a science laboratory for finding out what works best and helping you kind of keep what is useful and discard what is useless. So you kind of creating your own individual JKD style. And with as big as MMA had gotten, there's competitions locally that you can join up in and get involved in and do it in a safe way. As a kid, I remembered stories of people, saying that adults obviously, saying that they pretended to be drunk on a train in order to practice their like Jeet Kune Do or certain martial arts moves. All of that has just always been very sketchy for me as far as like trying to figure out if moves work. So I moved into mixed martial arts instead to try to figure out what moves work best and what my personal style is. And that was really the prime motivation. And then, once I got my first couple wins under my belt, I kind of got bitten by the bug and kind of wanted to see how far I have taken it. I think I've gotten to the point where, I've proven myself as not just a Hollywood tricks actor, but somebody who can actually do martial arts, hopefully at least.
Oh yeah, definitely. You've definitely proven yourself inside the cage for sure, especially with getting all these finishes, which is a big accomplishment. And then another superstar, CM Punk, fights, about your weight class. The Green Ranger used to be always calling him out, trying to be his first fight. And that was I was always wondering, like, if the UFC ever came to you and were like, Mike, we want you in here to fight CM Punk, would that have been a fight maybe you would have been interested in?
Dude, I'll fight CM Punk tomorrow. But I mean, that's the thing is, I'd fight most people tomorrow. Part of being a competitor is taking on those challenges as they come, right? Always kind of being ready for those types of stuff. So if the UFC came calling, certainly I would pick up that phone and answer that call. It's just part of being a martial artist and trying to push yourself to the next precipice. As far as like the individual fighters, Jason David Frank is a pretty talented martial artist himself. I don't see him necessarily taking on any fights unless it's a high profile fight, sort of like a CM Punk type fight. But like I said, it's no disrespect to Jason David Frank, I'd fight him tomorrow. Blake Foster and I, the Blue Turbo Ranger, we're talking about perhaps doing a mixed martial arts bout, talking at a few different venues. So, I'm interested in interesting fights, more so than I'm necessarily interested in the payday, but everybody has their own thing.
And that's actually another great segue to the Blake Foster fight. I saw his little call out kind of on like online and everything, and I was wondering if that's like a fight you think that might be able to actually happen. I think that would be great too. When you guys were both in the Power Rangers, you guys were both younger Rangers, but now you guys have both grown up. You both have great martial arts background. Is that a fight you think that might be able to actually happen down the road?
Well, I think it's a fun and interesting fight. Everybody talks about Jason David Frank because he's by far the most popular Power Ranger, right? But I think the fight between myself and Blake Foster is a more interesting one. Much to the surprise of perhaps some of your viewers, Blake Foster is a pretty talented point karate guy in the same way Wonder Boy Thompson was. So he's bigger, he's faster, he poses a lot of difficulty to me. Me saying that I'm going to smash his face in and take the L, take the W as quickly as possible is me just kind of doing a little bit of kayfabe. It's definitely a fight that I'm interested in. Definitely a fight that venues have expressed interest in, fans have expressed interest in. It's just a matter of whether or not we can make it work. I know Blake has priorities. He needs to make a certain amount of money. I'm less so interested in money, more so interested in interesting stories. As I always jokingly say, I fight for the scars and stories, not the fame. But if the paperwork all works out, I would love to fight it. And he's interested, I'm interested. We both agreed to it. It's just about finding a venue that would like to host it and put up the right kind of money for it.
That would definitely be a great match. And I definitely know a lot of people will be tuning in to watch that match. And I hope it does work out for you guys, and because, like I said, everyone would be tuning in to watch that fight. It would be an epic fight. And what is the hardest part for you when you step into the cage? Is it the training? Is it the weight cut? Or is it just the nerves before a fight?
I think by the time fight day comes, the hardest part of the fight is just waiting for the fight to happen. There's just a lot of thoughts that go through your brain. And I guess you can call it nerves. It's like a form of nerves, but I'm not nervous in the sense that I think I'm going to lose. I'm not nervous in the sense that, I think I'm going to get hurt or anything like that. I'm more just sick of thinking about the different things that could possibly happen, and it's sort of exhausting in the mind. For me, that is the most difficult part of fighting. Not the training, not the weight cut, not the being strict on diet. That's all, actually, to me, that's all the fun stuff. The literal crappiest part of fighting is when you wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and you have the main event at 8 o'clock at night, and for the next 12 hours, you're basically just thinking of all the different avenues that things can happen in.
Definitely. A lot of other guests also tell me that that's usually their worst part is it's just that wait to become the fight. Some of the fighters usually say, they like taking short notice fights because instead of thinking about the fight for, 8 to 6 weeks, they don't have to think about it for 2 to 3 weeks, and it's a little bit easier. So yeah, I could definitely see that. And you currently own your own martial arts gym. Can you tell me a little bit about your gym?
Yeah, so I have kids programs in several different martial arts areas. Olaski Martial Arts in Burbank, California. It's primarily run by my father, who taught me a lot of my martial arts growing up. So we have a kids program out there, which is a lot of fun. It's a small little gym, a small little private gym. So much fun to go home and see all the kids and adults working there. That's going to be a more true to the style that you see on Power Rangers and stuff that you see from me personally. I also own a kids kickboxing program here in Orem, Utah, which is at the University of Grappling. The University of Grappling is primarily responsible for taking my grappling level to what you see in those fights. The program under Mark Brewer and Ricky Lindell is really good for just crucifying a person to the ground and just beating them in the head until somebody stops you. Right? Kids program is run by myself, which means it is a little bit more esoteric. It has a little bit more leadership quality, leadership skills, teaching kids to be responsible martial artists. Once they become adults, obviously, then it's up to them, and they could go into the adults program there at the University of Grappling.
And looking back on your amazing MMA career, what was your most proudest moment inside the cage?
Gosh, that's a hard question. It's like asking me to pick a favorite kid. I would say I got in my third fight, I got a spin back fist knockout that is just highlight reel worthy. And that's mine forever. But I would say most of my satisfaction comes from just taking away everybody's option and making them give up. My coach Mark Brewer and I, we always joke about how that is the most satisfying type of win. Is rather than surprising somebody with a spin back fist knockout or an awesome submission, it's taking their will to continue away from them and just making them want to give up. A submission is so much better when someone just rolls over and gives you their neck because they don't want to fight anymore. So I'd say those are the most satisfying wins to me, is when I've taken away somebody's will to fight. But I'd say most memorable, my first Utah State title. It's obviously one of the better ones, and then there were several titles after that. I don't think I could choose one. It's just such a fun experience.
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely believe those are probably some great moments, winning those belts and getting all those finishes stacked up inside the cage. If you guys haven't seen them, you guys definitely need to go look them on YouTube and check out those great fights. And now I want to talk to you about your YouTube show called Blade of the Nerd, where you show off your amazing weapon training and skills. How have you mastered so many different weapons?
The funny thing about weapons is that there's a lot of crossover, right? I mean, if you learn one weapon, you've learned a lot of the angles and how to handle them, and it's all about just changing the little inconsistencies of the weapon, right? We were talking about this last night, oddly enough, on my YouTube channel, where, the staff and the spear, they're basically both the same weapon, you just use them a little bit differently. So using different weapons is all about just fine-tuning the point of that weapon. And that's what really the channel Blade of the Nerd is subtly trying to teach you to do. We're sneaking ourselves in with those pop culture references. I'm teaching you how to use the red power sword, or maybe Thor's hammer, or Loki's scepter, all that stuff. That's all fun and games. But really, we're teaching you how to use some of the most historical and deadliest weapons man has ever created. And you'll find that the moves tend to be pretty consistent throughout the whole process. And you master one, you're going to master all of them.
And what is your favorite weapon to use?
Again, asking me to pick my favorite kick. It really just depends on my mood. Sometimes when I'm more aggressive, I like Filipino style of weapons. A good one would be Kabika Bong, which is think of it as kind of like Muay Thai with swords. If you've never heard of Kabika Bong, we should do a Ronin Travel Pages show on that particular style of martial arts, because it's basically Muay Thai with swords. It's awesome.
Oh, wow.
But that's a bit of a digression. If I'm feeling a little bit more elegant, I like more Western European styles of sword play. It just really depends on how I'm feeling. If I'm angry or if I'm tricky or what have you. I've been really into the nunchucks lately. If you've been paying attention to my Instagram stories.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You're probably going to say the nunchucks. You're really great on your nunchucks. I don't know how you can throw them up and catch them, then put them behind you. It's pretty awesome to watch. I'm not going to lie. I like watching the nunchucks.
Practice. That's all it is.
Same when you broke that board. I saw that when we threw the board up and you broke it with the nunchucks to show everybody how powerful it is. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, they can get pretty dangerous. I think they get a bad rap sometimes just because a Ninja Turtle used them. But they could be pretty dangerous.
And you have an upcoming sword fight June 1st, 2019. Can you tell me a little bit about this event?
Yeah, so the Mars Warrior Challenge, they say fighting for a higher cause, because it's bringing in martial artists all over the world to compete in a sword competition for the benefit of autism awareness. I grew up with sort of an adoptive brother who lived with autism all of his life, obviously, so it's a cause that's very near and dear to my heart. But we're all going to get together at the Ventura County Fairgrounds near Los Angeles, California, June 1st for this awesome karate competition, like you might have seen in like the old ISKA days, or we talked about Karate Kid. That was an example of a karate competition, but with swords. So the concept of competition is what they call 9 lives. You start off with 9 lives, and every time you get tapped, whether it be mutual or you get out clean, you get a life deducted. And 2 2-minute rounds, and the person with the least lives at the end of the round, or the most lives at the end of the round, wins that particular round of competition. It's really cool. It's one of the only weapons competitions I know out there where you can win championship belts. Oh. So that's a big plus for me. Just another thing to put on. Yeah, they also have beginners and novice divisions. So if you're newer at it and you don't want to come in and get smoked by martial arts masters who've been doing it for 30 years, cool. Come in and try out a beginning competition. There'll also be items there for a silent auction to benefit autism awareness and stuff like that. So I recommend, even if you're just a casual fan of Power Rangers or martial arts or Three Ninjas, come down, say hi. I'll be doing a demo there. I can shake you and root for me, or if not, you can compete against me, and good luck to you on that one.
Exactly. So it is a bracket base. It's not just like a one match. You'll be doing multiple matches?
Correct. There are multiple matches there, which is always fun, because those weapon competitions, sometimes you'll go to them and you'll travel all the way to them, and then it'll be like one fight and you're dead. And it's kind of a bummer. But yes, there'll be brackets, there'll be multiple fights. You lose one fight, you'll have a few more fights to go. Another awesome thing about this is not only sword, but you can compete in knife, and you can compete as a team, which is an interesting new one. It's a team of 3. And I don't know how that works exactly yet, but 3 against 3 sounds awesome.
That actually does sound pretty cool to watch that. You won't be competing in any teams, though, correct? You'll be just doing the solo?
Oh, no, I'm going to do solo, I'm going to do knife, I'm going to get whatever I can get my hands on. Oh, wow. I'm going to make it team by the time I get there, or maybe I'll show up with a surprise team of awesome people, we'll see.
Oh, wow, that's really awesome. Yeah, definitely go get all those belts as you can,
Yeah.
And then, do you have any upcoming events, any Comic-Cons or any Morphin Power Rangers events that you'll be, you'll be there as a special guest?
Yeah, so I have a few coming up. A professional would have memorized them beforehand so that he can tell you it right off his head. But unfortunately, this guy right here didn't do his paperwork. I do have a lot of Comic-Cons coming up in the future. My best thing, honestly, is just to follow me on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook. I announce them pretty regularly as they're going out. I'm going to be in Florida a couple times this year. I'm going to be at the FanX in Utah probably later on in the year. It just really depends on who's booking me and when. Pay attention to my social media. You can find me at Big Bang Mike _ and on most of my social media programs. And just pay attention to that, and you'll see when I'm coming.
And do you have any special shout-outs or any sponsors you want to give any love to?
You know what? Since I've been at a competition for so long for having a broken hand, I don't have any current sponsors. The only sponsors that I have would be, come and check out my YouTube channel. We're working really hard on pushing that out there. Blade of the Nerd, as we discussed earlier, is a show, an ongoing show where I teach you how to use your favorite weapons from your favorite pop culture media. Ronin Travel Pages is a show where we dive into the deep history of a particular area and culture through their weapons. So we just did a ballet song video where we learned all about where the ballet song, the butterfly knife, came from, learned the history and culture of the Philippines and the martial arts through that. We're going to be doing another video coming up shortly with that, so make sure you go over there and like, subscribe, all that jazz.
Well, everyone needs to make sure to follow Mike Big Bang Olowski and stay up to date with his events and shows on his Instagram and Facebook page. And I just want to say thank you again, Mike, for giving me some of your time and coming on my show. And I definitely look forward to keep following you and everything. And thank you again.
No worries. Thank you. We have a lot of fun.